Here's a place where all of us can be safe. Our stories of transformation can be safe, and all the things we want to research are safe here. This is Safe Space with Cheyenne. I'm really excited you're here, and I hope you stick around for a while, because I've got a lot to show you before I leave Earth. I love you guys.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to our Safe Space. Today I have a beautiful guest. Not only is she an international best-selling author, she's a podcaster and a holistic therapist. Her name is Raman Rose, and she has come on today to not only tell her story, but also tell her, story into psychotherapy, spiritual healing, international best-selling authorship, and all the things that she is doing now. So let's bring her on the show and hear her story. Hello.
Hi, Cheyenne. How are you? Thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Well, thank you for having such amazing titles that I could say about you. Like, international best-selling author is honestly probably on my bucket list as well. So to meet somebody who's already in that realm is so inspiring. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that you came on the show. I know we got to talk off camera on our little tea time meet and greet, and I was just so excited to get into your episode, just from not only the spiritual things we're going to talk about, but psychotherapy and spirituality mixed together in a holistic fashion is probably one of my favorite topics. So bringing in an expert like you on, I'm just really excited to hear your story and share it with everybody.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I mean, this is just such a beautiful, podcast to be in. I love the title too, Safe Space. I love creating safe spaces. And so I think I'm in the right space with you. But yeah, I wrote this chapter in this book called Together We Rise, The Wounded Healer's Enlightened Journey to a Collective Ascension. And I got to work with other beautiful authors to bring this book into life. And it, became an overnight bestseller. So it was pretty amazing to know that these beautiful stories that are coming from the heart and coming from our deepest, darkest spaces, and how we've alchemized that pain and that, the sacred manure that source hands us sometimes in life, and how you can shift it and change it. So it's beautiful. And I think from the reviews that we're getting too, that folks are really resonating with the stories and becoming inspired. So it was a beautiful adventure and journey to take with these authors.
Okay, two things. One, sacred manure, I am stealing from you. That is amazing. Even the shaping and shifting, even though none of us really want to touch manure, but still powerful to think about all of the crap that we get thrown out of us is still I shouldn't say easily transmuted, but in retrospect, it definitely was like, oh, those are very simple steps. But then, as someone who wants to be an international best-selling author one day, what does it feel like to go to bed knowing that you published a part of your pain, like you really transmuted it into art, which I think is what we're all supposed to do with our pain, and then waking up and being so well received?
It's such a vulnerable process. Like, I still get chills on my body that I did it, because allowing someone or the world into those deepest spaces within yourself where you're questioning life and you're really asking what your purpose is, because I think that was my big thing of what is my purpose on this planet? And I didn't want to just take the script that was given to me by culture, by society, by by everyone. I wanted to pave my own way. And I think it's beautiful to share that with the world of how my Indian and American upbringing, just brought so many blessings, but I also saw the cultural pressures from both East and West, right? So there's a beautiful journey that I took of just exploring that, within my chapter. And so that was vulnerable, but also revealed to me too, that having both the East and West and these systems living in my body and transmuting them was just a powerful process. And so, yeah, it was a vulnerable journey. And I think and I relate to you too, because I think we're both similar like this. I'm such a multi-dimensional sort of being. Part of my problem, I was telling Sylvie and our publishers, was narrowing down what I want to share, because I've gone through like so much in my life, and we all have. And it's like, well, what story is ready to be shared? Like, what am I really doing here? Right. And like, what am I really wanting to share? So that was wonderful to kind of like feel and tune into of like, what part of my journey do I actually want to share? And yeah, so it was a beautiful, expansive journey. And I can't wait until you become a best-selling author too, because I see a book in your future too. Yeah, right?
Thank you. I dream about it all the time. I see it in my meditation. I swear I just saw the cover the other day, and I was like, I haven't even designed that yet. I hope that's correct. Like, when I go to do it, if it's actually that, I'm going to be like, yes. Which I do have my ebooks out right now, which are very like small, digestible little things. Because you know what it's like first getting into, like, whether you call it an awakening or any type of spirituality, you are truly so hungry for knowledge, and then somebody will recommend you a book that looks like a dictionary. Right. And you're like, I haven't got my monkey brain under control yet, so I'm just looking for like tidbits. And I think, again, when you, like, not to get like super hippy dippy on it, but like when you do connect to that unconditional universal love, you understand that like you want to serve and leave something behind that can like help and make somebody better. Whether like you're writing, it's helping somebody see you in your darkness so they can understand that they're not alone. And I can identify a lot with that in my writing, where I write about things that like people just kind of judge you about that you've experienced, whether it was transformational and better for you, they just couldn't even fathom going through, or they judge you for going through it. Right. So I really, really enjoy writing those dark parts, because like I was that girl sitting in the library when I was younger, reading. I mean, Ellen Hopkins was probably one of my favorite authors. She actually wrote stories in poetry form, and it just blew my mind that she could do that. But her stories were like so dark and so real and so raw that it just made me feel better about things that I was observing in my life at the time. So when I hear this book, and I also had the privilege of interviewing Sylvia, I felt really at home with the authors that I've been able to talk to about it, because I know that they understand that the pain is a part of the purpose. And whether they have figured out to transmute it or they're still working on it, the vulnerability and the fact that they aren't gatekeeping it and bypassing that trauma is something that makes me feel better about what I've been going through in my transformation as well.
That's so beautiful. I truly resonate with everything you're saying. I think when someone is authentic about what's happened in their journey and like what's happened in their life, and really share that in an authentic way, like the truth resonates, and so when someone is speaking those pockets of truth, you feel them in your own body, and it becomes like a lived experience, and within your own life, like you can look to it and be like, yes, that's what I've gone through. And it's so funny, because I think a lot of the times we think this, to build a legacy, is like this huge empire where we need to be this huge entrepreneur, or like have it look like what it does in the Matrix, quote unquote, of like making a lot of money, or even having kids, which I think is a beautiful legacy. But sometimes I think the deepest legacy you can leave is like really tuning into those deeper, darker parts, and like excavating them, like going really deep in and understanding who you are as a human, and then bringing that up as art and sharing it with the world, whether you share it with your kids, your family, or yeah, just like to your, even if you have like 5 followers on like Instagram, just like sharing your story. I think it can shift, it can shift reality. It can shift other people,
I think that's appropriate to say. And you popped up this thing that I've been seeing a lot of people say on social media, because it's all about views, likes, and engagement, to the point that it kind of feels like a Black Mirror episode now when you're on social media, especially if you have a brand or anything you want to get out into the world. Yep. And like 5 people is a great example, because they're like, you have 5 likes. Imagine standing in a room with 5 people that liked what you were saying. Like, would you feel good? And then like the TikTok train, like where you get stuck in 200 or 300 view jail, and I like picture myself in a room of 300 people, and I'm just like, oh well, I mean, I got a message out there. Maybe I didn't get the engagement that I wanted, but hopefully they saw it. Hopefully, that was the right audience. But
Right. Yeah.
I know there's a lot of like imposter syndrome that happens when you want to be your authentic self. Because like I survived with so many masks for so long, whether they were like the rebellious one, the good one, the bad one, like whatever you want to name them all. But like nothing has ever been more scary than coming out in the open and being like, I'm actually a nice, kind, soft person. And that was all a facade. I'm sorry about that. I didn't know either. So like the unconscious and the conscious line is kind of what I'm referring to. Can we go back into your story and kind of start what made you get into the profession that you're in, how you entered spirituality and what it's done for your life?
Yeah. Well, for me, I think, again, it was just like kind of questioning, reality. I've always been spiritual. I'll start that way. Growing up, I grew up in a Hindu Sikh household, and so my parents were very spiritual, and they never pushed spirituality down our throats, because I think part of Hinduism and Sikhism, it's like there are several ways to get to that one source. So there weren't too many judgments in my household from like how I approach spirituality. And I was naturally just so drawn to Sanskrit and like the Vedic philosophy and way of living. It was so like, it was already in my bones, and I was just awakening those codes. And so for me, like sitting with my grandfather at a very young age and just like meditation, where I didn't even know it was meditation, but like something about his presence and how still he got during, chanting of sacred Vedic mantras. You can feel it in the air, and I could feel that there was something there in that liminal space. And I was always so fascinated by that liminal, like that magic, like what is that? And so being like such a magical little child is how I see it. Like I just, I was really exploring like the fairies and going into the forest and all of that. So that part of me was already alive, and active. And so when I got older, I think I realized that, I want to continue exploring that, whatever that energy is, that feeling is when I feel connected in nature, when I'm chanting mantras, or when I'm in a temple. Like that energy was like, it could be anywhere. It's like when I'm playing in the forest, I could feel it. When I was like swimming, I could feel it. So I was fascinated by that energy, but then as I was growing older, um, in grade school and all of that, there were just so many pressures on like being the good little girl, because, from my culture, from my family. So I did put on a lot of masks, talking about masks, of like perfectionism, being the perfect little girl. That was something that was like embedded in me, that I needed to be this good girl to receive praise, to receive validation. And I think that fragmented me so much, because on the inside, I was so expansive, like I would like listen to rock music, and like Linkin Park was huge for me. Like,
oh my gosh, me too.
Yes. Oh! Right. Yeah. Chester Bennington and like his voice and Evanescence and just like that music, I could just get into that place.
Oh my God, did we have the same CD collection? You're freaking
yeah. Yeah. I know. And so I became like, I was a rocker in my head and in my brain. But I was like, like there were so many aspects of me that I didn't like being boxed into just one. Like, oh, just be the good, like quiet girl. Like that just wasn't me, because I just had so many parts to myself. And but I hid them. They weren't too open. If you were like my best friend, you saw that. Other than that, you saw like a student who was like striving, like a student. You just saw a student in excellence and, achieving the grades, like doing everything and being friends, with like different groups. And I was really into that. And by the time I got to high school, like I was so inundated with just like the heaviness of being that good student, good, good daughter and friend, that like I remember like I was just so silent. There was something, my voice wasn't really coming out. I didn't know how to articulate myself or communicate all of these parts of myself, which as a therapist I understand is so natural because, when you're growing up, that's part of being in the teenage phase. You're in that individuation process and you're like finding out who you are. And so, I mean, I graduated high school. My friends still knew me as like the, like, oh, she's not that into spirituality or anything. Like I didn't share that part of myself, even though on the inside, I was like exploring sacred feminine rage, through the Linkin Park, through all the rock music I was listening to. And I was exploring like spirituality. I was like, every time I was going to India, I was exploring meditation, mindfulness, and the goddess realms were so powerful for me because I saw that these sacred feminine energies, they could express everything. They're expressing their sensuality, their sexuality, their rage. There's a space for the elder goddesses. Like I'm really in awe of like women who carry the Doombati energy, like the crone energy. So I was like fascinated by women who were just like older in their body and they just like, they're so cool. Like they're just themselves, So my friend group, when I like, graduated high school, I realized I was most comfortable with like older women, who were kind of like in their body already. And so I would find myself in spaces where I'm like, okay, I can express myself. But then in college, it got like really dark for me. I think it was the darkest for me in college because I strayed away so much from like my spirituality. I like shut it out. I partied really hard. I studied really hard. I was not eating well. And all of that led to like the biggest crash that I felt in my body. And yeah, like I almost got diagnosed with like an autoimmune, with shingles. And I don't know, like my body was just breaking down. And at that moment in time, I just thought like, well, what is this? Like, I thought I'm doing everything, that I'm supposed to be doing. Like, why do I feel so shitty? The sacred manure. The manure was there. I wasn't realizing it was sacred yet, Yeah. So I'll stop right there, like, so you can add in because it goes on from there, but Yeah,
no, I would love to interject. I find it fascinating with so many people, not just your story, but even if they have an upbringing in spirituality, they still have a part in their journey where they just have to go experience something else in life. And I think that goes with any belief system. When you were talking about you have east and west in you, all I kept seeing was you like walking this tightrope in this divide of having your beliefs with you, your origin, your family with you, but then still trying to navigate the western side of you and how to really honestly blend it all together. And even through your story, again, Linkin Park and Evanescence, amazing to bring up. But I know what it's like to like keep that all inside your chest and then try to either go do something or be something to fit in with everybody. And that's what I keep seeing, especially when you're like, I completely shut out my spirituality because I didn't grow up with Sanskrit or anything like that. Like I grew up with a tremendous amount of Catholics and Christians. And immediately, like, I absolutely love Jesus, but I was like, I believe in reincarnation and I believe in karma. And I have never picked up any other book except for the Holy Bible at this time in my life. But there was already an instilled belief that I couldn't tell where it came from. even to the point where, like, I think one of my first tattoos was karma on my wrist, because I just like, you just like almost walk around and see like, oh, you're gonna get your karma for that. It's just kind of like a saying that people would say around, but a lot of the people that said it, they didn't have a belief that karma was real. And I definitely believed in it, and I always wondered, like, I have no basis in any Eastern religion, theology, philosophy at all, but instinctively I'm like, reincarnation makes sense to me and karma makes sense to me. Energetically it does, without zero definition. So to add my story into the mix, I went my short stint in college. It was very, very short before I dropped out. But I just went to, I was getting ready to do a world religions class before I left, and I was just so heartbroken that I didn't get to go in there and experience it through like a school system setting, because I obviously thought that the curriculum would be right. So I went to a thrift store one day and I found this huge book on world religions, and I was just like, okay, like, I'm going to go home and read this. So I sat down, did a little prayer, and the first page I opened to was Hinduism. And I remember immediately falling in love with all the deities and all the goddesses and the way that they expressed themselves and all their power that was like together and separate in a sense. Like, it showed individuality and singularity at the same time. Like, they were all working for the greatest force. And from that time, I think I was probably, I don't know, like 19 or 20 around that time. Like, I've still randomly studied anything that'll pop up about that, because I just think the culture is so fascinating. The origin of it is fascinating. When you get into yoga, which I know you know tons about, you start, which, I mean, my Sanskrit is not that good. It's definitely a white girl trying to do it. I'm just going to be honest, but I try so hard, but I mean, seriously, I need some lessons. But when you get into it and then you understand, like, when you're speaking Sanskrit, it's almost like music, only I'm really struggling to like figure out how to say it for people that have never spoken it or felt what it feels like in your body, whether it's in a session, whether it's at home, and understanding just like how divine I think Sanskrit is when I found it, and how healing it is, and how like thick, like even as I speak English, you, like how many breaths you have to take that just feels so in discord with your alignment, and then you sit down to either do breath work, meditate, yoga, mantras, whatever you want to do. And the alignment in that language has always fascinated me, probably more than anything that I've ever studied, including energy work when you can actually see it. But that's my little story that I wanted to add in, because I've always wondered what it was like for people to have been living in it for so long and still wonder, like, well, why did you stray away from such like a beautiful lineage, a beautiful process? Like, you already had it from your roots. But then I can also see it from my perspective, where I'm like, it probably didn't seem like that special and powerful for you if it was around you at such an adolescent age, and you're still trying to figure yourself out and where you fit in and what you want to do and why you're here.
Yeah, I mean, I love that share. Thank you actually for adding that in, because I think it's so important to like kind of highlight that we all go on our own, spiritual warrior journey, whatever that means, like finding out what spirit means to you. And I think what's beautiful, and one of the reasons why our world is so divided is we think our one faith could be the only way to connect to source. And it's funny because I think you and I are so similar. I also studied like world religions, because at one point I'm like, they're all saying the same thing.
Thank you.
They're all so saying the same thing. Really, yeah.
12 to 15 years of your life, it's about love. We all come from the same place. We're all saying the same thing, just in different languages. You're welcome.
Different languages. And to also watch out for the shadows in each of them, right? Because
absolutely.
I think what happens is a lot of the time we conflate like culture, and culture seeps its way into religion sometimes, and religion, the spirituality is separate. So part of what I had to do was like separate our culture from religion too. Like, what is Christianity? What is at the root of Sufism? What is at the root of Buddhism? And it's all the same thing. And I think our journey as a human is to really go into what that means for us, like, and not just take a script, you know, because I think what made my upbringing powerful, because I think I understand when, you know, to be kind of, it can feel like, well, I grew up with it, I didn't realize the power of it, but I did realize the power of it, because those Sanskrit mantras were vibrating in my being. And that was interesting to me, because I'm like, why is my body vibrating like why is, you know, what is this? I can feel it. I can feel that energy, that shift in energy. And so I think at a young age, I realized when that happens, when that shift happens in my body, I notice a power of something. And that's how I think I came to even understand Yeshua, Jesus, like being in that presence. And it gives me the same energy. And studying, you know, sitting with Buddha, right? Like gives me the same energy of just like, there is that power there. And I think these deities and these sacred masters and these energies are all our way of connecting to that one source, you know. And what happened in my journey too, and I can sense it's also for you, is sometimes you have to like shut out the light completely and like struggle in the dark and find your way back to like a path that is most resonant, you know. And I think then it really became like an embodiment. Like, why am I doing these practices? Not because I was told to do them, but because they actually work for me. And so that's when yoga, actually, I used to make fun of my mom doing it when I was younger, because I was just like, oh my God, she looks so funny. Like she'll, you know, in the morning I would walk, my sister and I, we would like wake up for school and she's practicing yoga and doing the breath work and all of that. And we thought it was hilarious. Like, what is mom doing in the living room? And it's funny because like yoga saved me years later, you know, from this like darkness that I was in. And it was all emotional turmoil, I think, for me, because I'm a deep, deep, deep feeler. And, you know, I'm a Libra, Leo moon, if anybody understands astrology, and a Scorpio rising. So I had like deep feelings, you know, in my being that needed expression, needed an outlet. And yoga became like a space where the uncomfortable finally, you know, began to like show itself like in a very conscious way. And I think that's what these practices, whether you're Christian or Buddhist or Muslim, which I wish I knew more about Muslim traditions, but I don't, but I do understand Sufism. They have this deep, you know, these deep practices that can like all bring you back, you know. So the Vedic tradition is in my bones, but I also respect so many other traditions and cultures. So I just wanted to weave that in there for the viewers, because, you know, we all come from such powerful lineages, and I just want to, you know, give them the flowers, each tradition their flowers, you know. There's no hate for anybody is what I'm saying with me. Yeah.
I feel the same way about you, especially in my studies, but also in my confusion of like visiting so many churches when I was younger. And I'm like, okay, you're all talking about Jesus. And I like that you said Yeshua. Thank you for that. But I'm like, why is a Catholic talking about a Methodist? Why is a Methodist talking about a Baptist? And, you know, you'd have some people like, oh, everybody has their beliefs. Everybody has their way. Everybody gets to choose their own path. I'm like, yeah, but like, why are you being judgmental about that? Which, I mean, I was too, but I'm also like the loudmouth that wants to call stuff out that I didn't understand. You know, like, oh, we're all good on Sunday, but, oh, we didn't like what Becky wore to church. You know, like, I just always thought that was so weird. And again, like, I'm a really young child when all this stuff happened. So, like, I just saw so much, again, like, discord in all the places that I went, and I was seriously so confused why everybody was talking about like the same stuff, but then they were all judging each other that like my religion's better. And honestly, when I started like my Hinduism research and getting in, like, I remember, I don't know what version or what translation of the Bhagavad Gita that I read, but I still wish I had the book because I borrowed it from my friend. But after I read that, that's when I really started piecing like the string between religions together. Because there's a part like right before the war goes, and I know I'm probably going to mess it up because I haven't read it in a long time, but basically the all says to, I think it's Arjuna, he says, all roads lead back to me, all paths lead back to me. And I didn't look at it as just this religion is saying, I am superior, I am the one. That was absolute source energy speaking to literally whatever path you take, whatever you worship, whatever you do, however long it takes, you will come back to me. And I felt really connected with that because it didn't leave anybody out at all when they said it.
Oh, I know. That's so beautiful. And I think that's how it should be. And that's what Yeshua, I often say, if Yeshua was in the States, he'd probably be deported into Mexico, right now, because like that.
Yeah, he was not Caucasian. Let's just say it right now, friends. I'm going to trigger you. He was not. A guy did not walk around the desert for that many years and not get a tan. Okay.
Right. And I'm not even political. Honestly, I don't. I think what we have in our country right now is a mess, and it's a divine mess we're all probably going to have to navigate. But yeah, we can't use religion to hate on people. Like I just, and it hurts me to use any religion, because I see it in India too. Let's hate on the Muslims, or the Muslims hate on the Christians, and in the States I see it with Christianity too, and it's sad to me, especially when I've really sat with Yeshua and I really sat with Jesus. I know who he is and I know what that energy is, and so it almost brings me to tears to use that to harm another, is so cruel, and his teachings are so beautiful. And I think if we actually implemented them, we would be so forgiving and loving as a society, because we use his name so much, but we don't actually practice, like you said, judging Becky for wearing what she wears, and so I actually love that you point out those, the hypocrisy, because I think that's what the divine feminine is here to do. And that's why she scares so many people. And that's why we erase someone like Mary Magdalene or Mother Mary or the goddesses. It's because, they have power and they bring balance to the chaos. And so I love what you're saying, because I think that's exactly what the divine feminine is here supposed to do, is like call that out, and in all her forms and in all her, archetypes. And so, yeah, just wanted to share that.
It's like we're reading each other's minds right now, because my next question to you is, okay, we've already brought up Yeshua. So tell me your opinion on Mary Magdalene. Because I know with the love that you're talking about Yeshua, and I know that you have divine feminine in your bloodline, you have obviously known about it way longer than I have. When you think of how Mary Magdalene is portrayed, and then I don't know if you have, but if you've looked at any of her divine feminine, or even her ties to the priestess of Isis stuff that I've read, who we know she was through the church, and then in your own studies, how did that revolutionize you as a feminine, but also understanding the feminine rising coming into play?
Right. It's so interesting you're mentioning that, because I have a book here that I often go to. It's like I said, I love studying all types of traditions, and I often go to Yeshua and Intimate Moments with the Savior, Learning to Love by Ken Gears, such a beautiful book. Because the other day I like to flip through books randomly sometimes just to see what the message of the day would be. And it's funny because I fell on the page where they talk about Mary Magdalene, and Mary Magdalene, I feel like, is such a controversial, being and presence in Christianity in general. But I honestly think she's the the most powerful part of Christianity. Like she's the sacred feminine to Yeshua's divine masculine, and the service that she offered from her heart to who we call, the King of Kings, because I do think that's a king energy, right? Like
absolutely,
to step into your divine masculinity in that way, and to be that soft and forgiving and still stand on business, like people say, like he was standing on business, right? And she supported that. Like she was the one who was offering the essential oils, and the sacred feminine is often shamed for her sensuality, but she brought all of that sensual aspect to that connection, right? Like through the essential oils and her alabaster jar with I think it was myrrh or frankincense. Like she was truly like a queen. And then to label her as a prostitute is kind of wild to me. It's wild, but honestly, I'm also thinking, well, yeah, she probably did have that sacred sexuality within her, and anybody would probably label that as like, well, I don't know how to categorize that, so she must be, like just, I don't want to call her a whore, but that's what they were essentially, labeling her as. And so I think her connection with Yeshua was to awaken the masculine as he's going through this deep transformation and torture at the hands of the shadow and the shadow masculine. So for me, these two are just like powerful, and I think they go hand in hand. And she's just such a powerful sacred feminine for me too, because she really represents how you can be in service to the masculine and awakening the masculine, and also be in your power and be a queen and be in your sensuality. And there are other teachings that go even deeper into that. So, they had an intimate relationship is what I feel. I deeply feel that Yeshua and Mary Magdalene had a very beautiful, intimate relationship, and maybe even possibly created life from that relationship. And I love traveling around the world, so I often go to England and Glastonbury, and there's a chapel dedicated to Mary Magdalene there. And it's said in several stories, I can't name right now, but and I can't remember, that she actually gave birth to a child with, between, I guess, like their sacred union created this child, and they left to either England or France, and that's where their journey was. And so it's a real thing. I think that people don't realize that she was not just like this side character. The divine feminine, even in Christianity, is at the front and center, but we only choose to like give sometimes Mother Mary, that not pedestal, but that light, because, she represents a purity. But no, like there's sacredness in sexuality, and when the masculine and feminine come together, I think it's so powerful. I don't know if that answered your question, but
it did. I'm just in complete awe of you, and you have brought so many things up that I just have to tell the listener after I know we are on the absolute same page with everything. But I'm just like, keep going, babe, keep going. I love it.
I know, and I know you get it, because when you're in your sacred feminine, you can see that so much more clearer, and yeah, so it's beautiful if you can actually dive into viewers and they can actually explore.
Figuring it out spiritually is one thing, but I've always been like a history nerd too. So, I mean, history is super easy to see just how like women have just been backhanded over and over and over, suppressed. If it's not the fact that, all of their symbolisms have been buried, tried to be erased from history, turning everybody into a whore that was there. But then when I got into Mary Magdalene research, I tried to find everything I possibly could about her that was away from religion. Like, I grew up with religion. I understand the Bible. I get that you think she is that, but let's look at the history of how women were perceived and treated at that time. And you can go, I mean, just by the fact that women couldn't be in churches by themselves. They couldn't speak in service. They had to be escorted by a man. You know, your father was basically the person who was in control of you until you went off to a husband that they picked. Historically, we know that women have been suppressed in that manner. My favorite thing about history that I found about Mary Magdalene was her name is Mary of Magdala. Historically speaking, if you have a title like that and then in the town that she's in, it shows status, it shows money, and it shows that you're allowed to be educated based on your status. So then in a channeled message, I found that her mom and her grandma and all the way back, they're a part of a mystery school lineage, a divine feminine lineage where, yes, you're going to go away and you're going to be educated, and then you will come back into the town. So not only did she fund Jesus's whole movement, by the way, for people that didn't know that, but it's also rumored that she was a priestess of Isis, and Isis taught sacred sexuality, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, the union, all the sacred stuff. You can look into Isis's stuff if you haven't. It's amazing. And one of the things about sacred sexuality is celibacy, preserving your energy, moving it up the chakras into the higher realms, using the energy for the better, for humanity, for the collective, on and on and on. So when I think, oh, they thought she was a whore, I look back historically because all of Isis's disciples, I guess you could say, they had a gold serpent bracelet wrapped around the wrist. And the gold serpent, I know it meant a couple different things, but the one I think of is like the snake eating its tail. It's showing the cycles of life, the rebirth, the cyclical of the feminine, and again, masculine and feminine together. So if she was seen with that bracelet, she's automatically condemned as a whore based on the status quo of religion and the patriarchy at the time and the suppression of women. Yeah. So when people read the Bible, they don't think of history. They don't think of putting themselves as a woman at the time and being like, well, why were women not honored properly? Why are you kicking them out of like mosques and churches because they're bleeding? They didn't choose to bleed. That's cyclically about them. So even the ignorance and the moon cycles, the ignorance and the feminine cycle, the care, the honor, just complete destruction of matriarchy just had me down a whole Mary Magdalene road. I've looked at the Sophia Code. I've looked at the channelings of Mary Magdalene, anything that you can find. And I love that you bring off the offspring because in a channeled message, she talks about what it was like when Jesus died and how she had to flee. And she went to, I think it was somewhere in France at the time that would now be something completely different. But the goddesses of Isis connected with the Druids, and the Druids and Isis members hid Mary Magdalene and helped her. And even she said, like, when her and Jesus met, they already knew how to communicate astrally, in dream, in telepathy. I mean, honestly, when you look at it, it looks like a bunch of twin flame stuff that we've modernized to this day. Like, it really does. They knew how to connect on every level possible. She knew he was going to die. She knew that she was going to be the one there, which again, historically, if somebody dies, it's only your wife and your mother that can go anoint your body. So I also think that they were married somehow, because how else would these creepy Roman people that wanted to, off him, but still pay him and his wife respect enough to anoint his body? So there was some honor in that circle that I don't think it's talked about enough either. But anyways, I'll wrap this up because this is obviously one of my favorite things to talk about. So Druids and Isis get together, which again, if you don't know about Druids, please do your research. They're amazing. They also kind of go off like Avatar and Home Tree anyways. So they get together, she has her baby, and then basically for the rest of her life, she meditates in this area of France that you would have to go research on your own. Sorry, I can't remember. And she's with Yeshua, just like she saw him after he came to her, after the 3 days after he came out, which, I mean, ascension, you can come down and still talk to people that are in the right consciousness state, right? she was with him, and he prepared her for his death. That's how much he loved her. Is he's like, you will be by my side in the physical this long. Afterwards, you already know how to connect. Yes, she was heartbroken. Yes, she missed him in the physical, but she knew what he came for and what she came for. And she also specifically stated in the Sophia Code, she knew that she would be demonized and her word would be suppressed for thousands of years. But she also knew time is an illusion, and the feminine would rise again. And when she would, those that were ready to receive her channel, just like Isis's teachings, which mirror a lot of Mary Magdalene's, if you look at the small script that we have left of the Gospel of Mary in the Berlin Codex, that the feminine is rising, they will come back, and those that learn how to connect, find the feminine calling, will know, like, hey, this is our true history. This is what we've been teaching. It is about balance of the masculine and feminine. It is about unconditional love. We have lost our way, but like, we're not mad at you. We're actually here of service now that you're open.
Chills. Yeah, exactly. These are such powerful teachings, and I think we need to know that it's all connected, right? Like, because we could think it's so like, oh, well, Isis is coming from the Middle East, like how, or not the Middle East, but from Africa, right? North Africa, in Egypt. So how is that connected? Well, it's all connected. Like when you go to the root of, the Divine Mother teachings, they're all connected and they go back to these ancient lineages. So it's so beautiful you went into that. It gave me chills because I think even the serpent energy is like very much connected to the goddess energy, and the demonization of the serpent and the goddess, and that sacred feminine sexuality is just, it's there. Even Lilith, Lilith is even so demonized. But all of those feminine forces I think we're talking about, they weren't so like, because I think we're all into like purity teachings. There's some evil in the world and we know this, right? But there's also the womb, when life is created, it happens in darkness. And so I think that's what people are afraid of. When the darker aspects of the feminine come up, they don't know what to do with it. So they're like, let's scrap all of that, and we don't want to do with any of that. Like that has to do with sexuality or like the rage, the sacred feminine rage, and how she creates life. And yeah, so I think it's so important to speak about these things, because it also, why is this all important? Because I think as humans, if we shun these aspects and these stories out that are so important, archetypal stories, being, like as humans, like we survive on archetypal wisdom and knowledge. We all know what a mother is. We all know what a father is. We all know what a goddess is. And as a therapist, I often like ask people, well, what archetypal stories are you tuning into, when you're relating to deities or culture or tradition? And I think by leaving out the feminine and leaving out such a huge part of Mary Magdalene and her being this priestess, we are limiting our view of the feminine and the sacred feminine. And so that causes fragmentation, right? With girls like us growing up, who then are just like, well, that part of me isn't pure. Me feeling anger, rage, and these are sacred expressions when you're not harming anybody, right? And you're allowing things to come up for yourself. That is sacred, right? And even rage and anger and sexuality, they create life, and they protect life. That's also the other thing, is that, as the sacred feminine, we're here to call out those structures and bring this information into light. And we're going to be met with like so much resistance, and our expression, our feelings, our way of expressing protects us from that, of the resistance we may be met with, because, our love and our anger is going to keep the movement going forward. I think of like wanting to no longer be suppressed, if that makes sense.
Oh, I definitely think the rage of the divine feminine is coming out. I think the rage of like my pleasure not being honored, my body not being honored, being used, being thrown away, being talked about, all of those things are coming out in such a like fire hose. So like you see someone going through their spirituality journey, it's kind of like they wake up, they realize they don't love themselves, they realize they've been suppressed, they're fucking pissed, they tell everybody to fuck off, I'm in my fuck you era, and then I'm in my self-healing era, and then I'm in like, I'm getting to my balance area. And then when they finally find the peak of the feminine, they still have a lot of guilt and shame, almost like embarrassment of like, holy shit, this has been in me all along that's been suppressed from X, Y, Z. And then, you know, with people like Aubrey Marcus with a huge platform coming on and saying that ISIS told him to go impregnate 2 women. That would be like Jesus telling you to go kill your friend. It's completely against anything that he taught or ever said. And when I saw that, the freaking rage that went inside of my body was like a calling to not only Lilith, not only Kali, not only Mary Magdalene, not only ISIS, but like I was so infuriated that once again we have some jerk on some platform that I don't know why people listen to him and think that he just, you know, talks to mushrooms and gets answers from God, is literally polluting the most pure teachings that it just has to stop. Like I even went on TikTok and I was like, I'm so sorry I'm making a TikTok about this, but I have studied ISIS and this is so freaking disrespectful to her teachings. This guy is literally channeling demons at this point or whatever. And I just have to call it out. So for anybody that's like, hey, I would like to learn discernment on a false idol, just please go listen to that psychopath because he really offended a lot of feminine rage. He ignited a lot of feminine rage. I was all over Threads, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Like, does anybody feel as mad as I am about what he just said about ISIS? Because he's perpetuating a narrative that needs to be broken. Right. So now that we've had our goddess training for today, I would like to know what happened to you after college.
Yeah, I know.
I knew we were gonna pre-range, but it's fine. We already said we have so many topics in common, and I think it was a great history lesson for everybody to go do their own research. So, but I do want to get back to you because this is your episode, and just to pick up where we left off, you had very dark times during college. I resonate with that so much. I thought my life was going to be over, not only during college, but after I dropped out of college and like the 3 or 4 years after. So I'm interested to hear how you really pulled yourself out of that. I know we were referencing yoga, but how we're moving into the space that we are now.
Right. I love Goddess Talk. Like that's like one of my, you know, I don't know. I love it deeply. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Always honoring her and bringing her into all spaces, you know. But yeah, so in college, like I said, I had few darker moments, you know, growing up, right, where I felt suppressed, like repressing my feelings, my emotions, and developing anxiety over time. I think that was a big one where I had massive amount of anxiety, and that's also turned me to yoga and meditation. I had a very hard time like allowing people in, like into my inner thoughts. And that was causing a lot of chaos on the inside of like, why can't I say what I actually feel? And, you know, and it was a lot of self-abandoning so others don't abandon me, right? So a lot of molding into what others want me to be and just kind of following the flow. And yeah, so there was a lot of like, you know, in that phase, just like partying, drinking, like all of that was involved. And I think that led to my crash in college. And it's funny because I think if you ask my friends, they're just like, well, you seemed fine. You were laughing. You were having a good time. Like on the inside, I was not Like I was not okay. And I realized I'm very high functioning. Like most people can't tell when I have a lot of anxiety or I'm going through something because I'll be so calm. However, if you're in my inner circle, oh, you know, like what I'm going through, and it's not pretty. It's not, it's quite ugly actually. And like really going into that feeling, and I dive like head first. I'll dive head first into my feelings. And many times I was ruminating in that, like I didn't know how to transmute it, you know? And so a lot of my journey became like my body just wanted to give up on me. And in a lot of instances, it was like, I'm not moving. I'm going to develop, you know, a foggy brain where I couldn't think clearly. I couldn't even formulate sentences sometimes because it was so like, you know, just confused in my mind. So it was causing a lot of confusion in my mind, and then not eating properly, and my body crashed. So then I had to come back into the body, and I think a lot of the feminine, like people who are women, right? Like our bodies are designed to go through hormonal shifts and changes, and all of that was happening. And I didn't know that like my moon cycle was causing a lot of this stuff. So I like got really into that of like, well, what's in my tampons? What's in my food? Because I'm not feeling good ingesting. I'm not feeling good due to something that maybe I'm ingesting and maybe I'm like taking in. So I started like kind of going through and auditing different things in my life, like what is working for me, what isn't. And so the first step was to get toxins out of my body because I knew I couldn't think clearly. And I was pretty young at the time. I think it was at 2021 is when I started to like realize that there's something that I need to purify my channel. Like I need to bring my body back into resonance. Women think our spirituality is more about coming in from the mind all the way into the body. Whereas for men, I believe it's like they're coming out of the body and more into the goddess almost, right? And for women, the goddess is you're coming all the way in. So it was very natural for me to just like, let's look at the body and what she's going through. And so then I started juicing, and that was big for me. Like at that moment of time, I became vegan because it helped me. It was just simply like, I'm not like much on like somebody giving me something to like believe in. I'm more of like, I need to experience it and feel it. And if it feels good, then I'm going to say yes to it. So when I started juicing, I took out like dairy, gluten, all of that. I became so much more sensitive to my feelings and emotions. My body became lighter. Like I just felt lighter. It was like the light was coming back on, like the cells were being fed nourishment, like true nourishment without the heaviness. And that, then like, it was interesting. At the same time, I started practicing yoga. So something about eating very well and then practicing yoga and feeling the shifts and changes and being available to my feelings on a conscious level rather than being thrashed around by my emotions and my hormones all the time. I had like a boat, you know, and I could like even though I wasn't a good sailor of my feelings and emotions, like I knew that like, all right, I have this boat. I can like, I can use yoga, you know, and yoga helps me, and I can do the juicing. I can eat better, and it makes me feel better. But also look at, you know, what that maybe ancestral pain was. Like there was a lot of ancestral generational trauma that I was carrying that I knew wasn't mine because I kept feeling. I haven't gone through super traumatic. I have gone through trauma, obviously, in my life, and I have complex PTSD, a lot of complex trauma. But like the way I would receive things brought me deep pain. Like, you know, another person would receive the same thing and they may be seemingly fine. But for me, the way I was receiving a lot of things, like it just stayed in my body and like it would just sit there. So these practices, you know, helped me shift my relationship with my body. So I became healthier, more lighter. And then I decided, and that's something I write in the book too, I didn't want to go to medical school. Instead, I wanted to like go become a therapist and like do the spirituality thing. And yeah, so then I applied to this very prestigious program in New York City at Columbia University at Teachers College. And I applied to the counseling and clinical psychology program and became, trained in psychotherapy, but also like the program was centered around spirituality. So I like honestly got like a bunch of my permission slips from professors, that were really going to open that up for me even more, that there's research about why you feel better when you chant, why monks are, have like, I think the subcortical region of their brain thickens and actually protects them from depression and anxiety. And so there was a science, and that's a huge part of me. Again, like the East and the West live inside me. The science and the magic lives inside of me. And I'm walking that middle path because it makes sense to me that like they're one, really, and like I was just exploring my shadow just as much as my light during that time of like, what is that generational trauma? But then also, what am I in my divinity, and what am I as a like goddess in the flesh? Like, what does that mean? Like, you don't just want to be goddess. Like, I have flesh. I'm in, I'm in this meat suit. So I don't want to ascend the meat suit. I want to become one with this, whatever this experience is, because I'm here for a reason. I have this consciousness for a reason. I have this body for a reason. So it became like this very beautiful weaving of science and magic and studying from my professors. And yeah, like I went through like multiple different transformations. I sat with ayahuasca. That was a huge part of my journey too. And I don't recommend this for everyone. I always tell people, like, I don't recommend this. I think my spirit is just made a little different. Like I don't know what it is. Maybe it's crazy. I'll just go into space.
Dangerous, I call it.
I don't recommend it because honestly, it's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I think I did so well in these circles is because I had a really awesome support system. I had a really good group of friends and family. And I had a therapy background and training to kind of like go through it, but it was a hard journey. Like, you really have to obliterate all that you know about being human, and it all meshes into one. And that's when I really started understanding the quantum space. And that quantum entanglement is like a real thing, even spiritually.
Oh, of course.
And
you're talking to a believer, baby. Like everything you're saying, I'm like,
right. Yeah, exactly. And so that's when like the visions where I was just like, oh, okay, I used to have precognitive dreams when I was growing up. And now here's a professor who's talking about it. And here after ayahuasca, I started, all of that started coming online even more because my third eye was open. And yeah, so it just, after that, it was just a lot of visions and just taking cue from my higher self, and the right teachers kept coming onto my path. And a lot of, a lot of these medicine circles will also bring a lot of like folks who are wounded, right? Because I'm going in there because I'm wounded and trying to heal the wound. So that was big too, of like, how do you navigate that space when everyone's open spiritually? And like,
oh yeah. Well, I think it's just a great testing ground in retrospect after, not to cut you off, to build your intuition and build your discernment. Because I think there's that thing that are like, oh, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. It's not always going to be the right teacher. That teacher might be a teacher of discernment, and you have to look for certain red flags. If you don't know the red flags, collect all the flags. You're going to find out at the end of this journey. And man, I don't even want to get into bad practitioners and good practitioners, but what I will say, since this is a safe space, if you find a practitioner and they're not directing you back towards you, and they're trying to be your channel to the divine in some capacity, get away from them so fast. I mean, learn what you got to, I guess, but in the spiritual things, especially in medicine circles, whether it's ayahuasca, DMT, combo, rapé, whatever, like those industries popped up so fast. You had people getting qualified in 72 hours and then taking one hit, thinking they met God, and then serving the medicine the next day like their vessel was cleared out enough. And again, maybe it's your path of discernment to sit with so many teachers that you're out of alignment with, but I just have to put that PSA there anytime I talk about any type of plant medicine, because I'm like you. Well, I mean, I know you've done ayahuasca, but I haven't, and I've always wanted to, but I'm always like, when I am called and I feel confident in it and I know it's a safe enough space, like I will go there. If I never get called, I'm never going to go look for it. Exactly. I already had such an amazing transformation when I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. That was ayahuasca to me. Like everybody thought I was going insane with the things I was talking about. And I was like, you just don't get it. I'm so sorry. But this love that I have finally felt in my chest, this thing that all of us are looking for that I actually get now. It was like taking shrooms and being able to take the information with you after the shrooms wore off. Yeah. That's kind of how it feels. Because usually you forget everything. Like you're like, oh yeah, I remember the oneness, the infinite. I watched ants build their house for 3 to 6 hours. Like it was beautiful. I was totally one of them. You have those experiences, but then after it wears off, you're like, it's just the psilocybin. That was fun. Back to human life. Mm-hmm. But when you have an awakening, whatever way you awaken, mine specifically was Kundalini, every clear sense activated. And I needed the definition for so many things, which is why I was so hungry to go into any modality, any circles, any energy training. What is this? What is this? What is this? And to go through. And yeah, in about 6 years, I developed some really good discernment because I met some really crazy people.
Exactly. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. You know, you don't want to go searching for it because ayahuasca, especially, the plant spirit is so sacred. It's the grandmother spirit. And I deeply respect that medicine, but it calls to you. You don't need to go look for it, you know? And I think you're absolutely right. It's not for everybody, and not everybody is a safe facilitator, right? And many of these circles, it's like someone takes a weekend course, and I've met those people, like they'll sit maybe a dozen times, and now the ayahuasca is calling them, you know, to the jungle to become a trainer. And it's just like, maybe you have to really be discerning of the visions you get to, like you were talking about Aubrey Marcus, right? You know, which the brother seems a little bit, you know, like, well, where is that vision coming from? You need to question those visions. Some visions are symbolic, right? And they stay in symbolism. Like just because you're having a dream about something doesn't mean it needs to actualize in reality, right? So there are many visions I had where it even showed me my own illusions, you know, and the medicine is just showing you your own illusions until you get to the truth of who you are. And for me, I was able to sit with very, very beautiful indigenous shamans, and the medicine, she's beautiful. Like the grandmother spirit is beautiful. And I think she's a very fierce, like Kalima energy, actually, like Ishtar, Kalima, Isis. And it's a fast Kundalini awakening. Like you were saying, I call Kundalini yoga like the ayahuasca of yogas, because it really helps your Kundalini go fast and up. Ayahuasca is so much more faster. It's like at lightning speed that you're awakening your Kundalini, your Shakti. It goes all the way up. So the people you're around, you don't think your Shakti is going to be impacted by that? Like it is. Like I remember in those circles, even though this is the most healing experience I've had, because I don't think I would have released that heaviness of the generational trauma that quickly if I hadn't sat in those spaces in the way I did, you know. And that's why when I was like 24, people were like, well, how do you? Well, because I took those sometimes my spirit just wants to do things really like, let's do them now. Let's clear it, you know? And the way it came to me was a very sacred way too, where someone, you know, that I really trusted, a teacher I trusted was like, I think you need to sit with the medicine. And I found my way to it. But during the ceremony itself, I was feeling everybody's energy and their vibrations, you know, so you need to be mindful of who you're sitting with. Does the facilitator know how to guard that space? You know, because one of the things I would see is, like, I was in that space and my third eye is already open. You could see there is a grid there, and you need to have a strong, powerful teacher whose frequency is strong enough. So you're in somebody else's frequency and they're setting the space, you know. And that's why I don't sit with the medicine anymore. The last time I sat was in 2017, is because I think I'm so sensitive already. I can get there. And even before that, I could get there, but the release is just so powerful, because if you're ready to release some deep stuff, it'll take you there. But the Kundalini moves way quickly, and I don't think there's enough integration or support in circles to support that. There just isn't. I've seen it with my own eyes, like someone doing a circle and then going back to the city, and going through a psychosis, you know. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
I've read a lot about that.
I love that you're talking about that. I think it needs to come with a disclaimer and can't be romanticized, right? The way people do. So I love what
I think all the arrhythmia conversations and all the celebrity endorsements on the plant medicine, you know, obviously put us regular people in a tailspin about, you know, what's the next way that we can clear our trauma. I looked at brain scans of people on ayahuasca. They did like MRIs before, during, and after, to see what parts of the brain were lighting up when the medicine actually goes through you. And that's scientifically what turned me on to ayahuasca years before, like, all of the shamans that aren't shamans went into the jungle. You know what I'm saying?
I call them shamans, by the way. Plastic shamans.
Perfect. Oh, yes, you said that. Yes, you said there's a ton out where you are. Plastic shamans. Let's remember that forever. Okay. So on the brain scan, like, your fears held back here, they look like two little lungs on the back of your head. And they said those immediately lit up, and basically it would like flash the visions. I want to say in your pineal gland, but I know that's not what they said, but just for the visual purpose, like, picture a TV screen, and the people were reporting that they were going and not only reliving the things that were holding them back, but it was bringing the trauma to the surface for them to rise and be healed almost instantly. Medicine couldn't do it. Therapy couldn't do it. You could sit and talk about the same thing for 10 years and it would never come out of your body. You're just reliving it. And something in the medicine highlighted this, pulled it out of your head. And then what I think with all of my research just cleared through your crown chakra. And I know because that purple light is just the greatest beam of light to clear anything negative out. So when I got to it on a scientific level, I was like, oh, I really hope one day I can do that. And then the DMT stuff came out and I was like, oh, I really hope one day I can do that. And I've been offered DMT so much in my life, it's ridiculous. People go smoke it on a dance floor and I think that's insane. But I've never been called to it in a responsible, respectful, or spiritual nature. And I have done my research on psychosis. I have met people in psychosis. And it's not the route that I want to go. It's not the mother that I want to be. So I do like talking about the safety about it, not just because that's literally the title of my show and my passion in life, but also, like, let's not glamorize that you're putting a substance in your body and you have no idea how you're going to be afterwards. And you're right, there really isn't a lot of integration help. There's a lot of people that go through a lot of scary things. There's a lot of people that leave themselves open and end up getting attachments afterwards. And before you did ayahuasca, you didn't hear anything. And after ayahuasca, you have 100 voices in your head and you can't hear your own. Like, I read an article about that from so many people. And I just think if you're going to do it, you need to know this is what could happen. But this is all, like, yes, you can go meet the mother. You can meet your spirit guide. You can meet God. You can meet all of your demons, all of their demons. So it's definitely something that should be talked about. So how, after the medicine, how did you integrate this into not only what you're doing now, Um, but yeah, like, how did you integrate that into your life, especially since, like, I'm done with sitting with medicine for now, and this is kind of the trajectory that I want to take my path.
Well, like I said, I'm deeply in this, path of like self-exploration and excavating the deepest parts of me. So for me, I would sit with ayahuasca, I think it was 3 times a year, and it would be 3 ceremonies in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. For about a couple of years, I did that. And so I spent months really taking apart some of that stuff, and working through with mentors of like, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm navigating. And even with my mom, I had super powerful conversations with my mom, because after the first ceremony, I met her mother, my grandmother, during ayahuasca. And that's how I see ayahuasca. I see her as a grandmother, because I remember the vision of this woman dressed in a white suit, and there was sacred geometry all behind her. I was like one with the earth. I was just like lying on the floor and getting these beautiful visions. And I see this woman, and she was just like, I can't hear her speak, but she's like kind of sharing something. And I brought it up to my mom that, like, what's happened. And so then she shared a lot of stuff that's happened in our lineage and that she's gone through. And that was a shock to me, because I'm like, oh my gosh, my grandmother showed that to me during ayahuasca. Like, she literally showed me that. And so for me, the crone again was like a big, like the crone always comes through to share some deep wisdom. So I unpacked all of that. So that's how it usually would be. I would sit through a ceremony. All of the beautiful visions would come through, the light, and also like the generational trauma was mostly what I was feeling. And even, not to get too esoteric about it, but past lives, I could feel, I'm like, oh, I'm carrying this from this lifetime. And this is what I'm supposed to bring in. This is what I'm supposed to heal. So I was like a little scientist during those things of like writing stuff out, asking the shaman what's happening, and to the point, I remember one time, one of the facilitators during the ceremony, he was just like, wow, you're really making me look at things differently. I'm like, yeah, because your mind is so sharp during medicine space. It's so sharp and it's so wild and visceral, and you're so lucid. You're actually very, very sober. It's actually how I see it. Like, I'm not out of my body. I'm so in my body. And you can feel these different dimensions. You can go to these different areas. And now I realize, after like going through that, I don't want to be that exposed. I would just want to be human. And now I've gotten to the place where I'm like, I know my multidimensional self. I know I come from the stars. I know the lineages I come from. But now I want to be human. I want to live in this body. I want to experience this body. I want to help other people experience beauty and light and honor their shadow, and in a healthy way. So after 2017, I realized that for me, sitting in those circles is kind of done, because I think I was also witnessing the plastic shaman thing come alive. And my last circle was in LA, actually in Joshua Tree. And it was beautiful, but I could feel that shift happening of where it was becoming trendy, and I started doing this like way before. So I'm like, okay, the shift was happening really, really quick, and so I stopped sitting in those circles, because I realized I want to feel safe. And I was so used to feeling unsafe in my healing that, ayahuasca can be incredibly unsafe if you don't already feel safe within your being, right? Because everything is open. And then I think it was just like, well, now I just want to integrate. And it wasn't a conscious decision, but I just was like, all right, I kind of like what I'm doing. And like with the yoga, with mindfulness, with therapy. And yeah, so then just stepping into the teacher's role or into the therapist role, I deeply value going in within myself and like doing the work. Because how can I help anybody if I'm just sitting there with a bunch of stuff, just like, holding on to my own stuff? And if I haven't gone deep within myself, I can't go deep with my clients. If I haven't found safety within myself, how safe am I really for somebody else, right? And so it's a lot of that for me, of like, I heal, and that healing is actually the way I change the world. It ripples. And And yeah, so then I think no longer sitting with ayahuasca is just like, now I can get to those spaces. I just want to be human. I don't need to see too much. I'll receive the wisdom I need to receive in meditation and in yoga on my walks when I'm eating delicious food. Like, it doesn't need to be this harsh thing where ayahuasca can be pretty harsh. It's Kalima. You have to understand that that's Kalima. That's the mother who's going to cut through the ego so quickly. You're not going to know what's up or down. And so for me, I always like sat with Kalima and I was like, okay, I'll just bring you consciously in meditation where you help me in the void, and we'll go there. And she still holds me through the darkest, and she's held me in the darkest with ayahuasca and in the brightest too. So now my ceremony, my rituals are very like just me, or like sisters around me, or, or folks who are around me. Like, that's where my ceremony comes in. It's softer and it invites in more beauty, like more, because I honestly, a huge part of me is that beauty. And I don't mean the superficial plastic shaman type of beauty. I mean like real, like, how am I feeling in my body today? Am I liking the color I'm wearing? Or, it's like bringing your light out, and all of that out is a main part of my journey right now, and what I help with others too.
I could just listen to you talk all day. You say so many beautiful things, so many relatable things, but I love how even at the end of it, it always comes back to not bypassing, taking accountability for your own stuff, realizing that if I don't go deep enough into myself, I can't do anything for you. And then when you talked about the ripple effect, which any religion, theology, philosophy, the ones that just really get it, like the Carl Jung feel of it, the Alan Watts of it, the universality of it, I would say, they all go back to the ripple effect. Because, one person standing on their own, they're like, how can I help? How can I change the world? I see so much suffering. I see so much pain. I feel all of it in my body, but I'm only one person. How can I help? Mm-hmm. And the answer has always come back to love and the ripple effect, and knowing yourself, others, seeing you and everybody in yourself, realizing you're not separate, all of these very deep, vast things that you learn on the journey. You have such an eloquent way of putting it, and such a responsibility, and even like the sharpness that you are talking about, the way that when a cycle is ending and when you know that you need to move on, and being called back into yourself, I think is just so powerful. And I hope that I meet more people the more I go along, not only on my journey, but in my podcasting journey, that speak the way you do, because you have to go through a tremendous amount of hell to get to where you are. And I see you where you are. I've been in the circles, not the ayahuasca ones, but I've been in the circles. I've studied the modalities. I've done a lot of work, and I still continue to do a lot of work and hold myself accountable. But I have never felt more alive in my feminine and more secure in my relationship with who created me than taking everything out of my Mary Poppins bag, kicking out what really isn't for me, and then just sitting with myself and knowing, like, yes, my vessel matters and I do have a ripple effect. So meeting another person that does that, I mean, it's just chef's kiss. Love it. I want to crawl through and hug you. Like, I see you. I get you. Yes. So what are you doing now? How can people get a hold of you? And I know you said that you aren't taking patients right now for the psychotherapy. You're still doing podcasts, going on as a guest and also as a host, international best-selling author. But you are also a facilitator of retreats. So if anybody wanted to get a hold of you and work with you in any capacity, how would they be able to do that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I know this has been so lovely, Cheyenne. Thank you so much. You do truly create a safe space for one to be. I really truly experienced that from you, and you're such a light in this world. So your viewers are so blessed to have you, and and I'm so blessed to have you as a host today. And yeah, so how folks can find me. So right now what I'm doing is a lot of retreats. A lot of the work that I do is going back to the earth, right? Back to the beauty way. That's what it's called, the beauty way. And so a lot of my retreats are in different parts of the world. Like my last one was in Sedona. I do one in Glastonbury, where the goddess, obviously Mary Magdalene, is huge there. And a lot of the Druid Celtic tradition is huge for me too. And so it's just in my spiritual DNA. Like I feel so at home in that part of the world too, which is so surprising, right? Because I'm also like really, really, in my Indian culture, but I deeply feel the Druid and the Celtic roots. So my sister and I are doing our next retreat there with, the Mary Magdalene codes, and also the just a sacred feminine. There's a beautiful goddess temple in Glastonbury that we're working with to bring these teachings alive for folks. And most importantly, my work is about going back to the earth and honoring the earth, because I truly believe that there's deep wisdom in the earth, and that we are being separated, like deliberately being separated and divorced from that, sacred bond and connection we share with the organic mother matrix, and to go back to her and her different earth guides in different parts of the world is deeply calling me right now in my path. And so there's also a retreat that I'm doing here in California with horses. I work deeply therapeutically with horses, where, I think they have such a beautiful heart field that I've just witnessed so many people transform their bodies and their connections with themselves and their loved ones just by being around horses. So we have a beautiful therapeutic workshop retreat designed for that in August. And Glastonbury will be later on in the year, into next year. We still haven't pinned the date yet. And other than that, right now I do one-on-one sessions, but I'm no longer practicing just psychotherapy because my work is beyond that. I almost feel like my training is very much in the spaces that I hold now, but I'm more open to sacred feminine mentorship. And because a lot of my work is bringing the goddess alive within all of us, whether you're a guy, it doesn't matter. Even the men need the sacred feminine to balance out within themselves. So I do offer those one-on-one mentorship and a lot of group work. And you can also find me on YouTube under Raman Rose. I am Raman Rose. I also have a podcast. I would love to have Cheyenne on, actually, one of these days. I think that'll be really fun for us to talk about these beautiful things. And that's been a huge focus for me too, of building that online community. And I call it the Temple of the Rose, because I truly feel like it's a temple when you walk into that space energetically. So hopefully you feel that too. And yeah, so that's what's happening right now, doing a Beauty Way tour around the world. Soon wrote this beautiful book, which is a bestseller now, which I'm about. And yeah, that's about it. And I'm really excited to be doing this with you.
You're so inspiring. We've been talking for probably an hour and a half now, and I know that we're at the end of our journey right now together, but I cannot wait to talk and reconnect with you, because truly, so many things in common, so many things resonate with me. And again, I'm just that person that's my ego wants to trap me and tell me I'm alone in so many things, especially in spirituality and in our experiences. And I know how silly it is, because it's a lie. There's so many people that go through it, but to sit here today and hear so many parts of your story that just really sit with my soul and with my belief. And I mean, even Mary, my goodness, and all of the things that you're doing for the divine feminine, it just meeting people like you restores my hope and spirituality in communities and even in the human race, but especially spiritual community. So I just want to say thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for coming on today. And I look forward to reconnecting with you in the future.
Same. I'm just so honored, to be here and to also invite in the goddess the way we did. I could really feel the presence of, you know, just all these sacred feminine energies that we were speaking of. And I could really tell that you're also from that priestess lineage and just doing your beautiful work. And man, I'm just so happy that you're on this planet too, just being you and doing your work. And it lights me up just to know that there are other folks, other sisters, other goddesses doing the work.
I'm the same. I love it. Okay, friends, we'll see you on the next episode. If you need to get a hold of any of Raman Rose's information, it is going to be down below. I will see you on the next episode. Love you guys.